Hey Bio 1406, this is Christy, and today we're going to be talking about neurofibromatosis type 1. So just to give you guys a heads up that there are 3 different types of neurofibromatosis, type 1, type 2, and schwannomatosis, but today we're only going to be talking about type 1. So, neurofibromatosis type 1, also referred to as Recklinghausen's disease. It's characterized by the development of numerous tumors, as you can see here in this picture I have above for you, as well as changing of the skin color, the skin pigmentation. It's also known as the more frequent autosomal dominant disease, which makes it the more prominent disease. Neurofibromatosis type 1 will account for about 90% of all NF cases. So you know how I told you there's 3 different types? 90%. So those with NF type 1 are usually born with one mutated copy of the NF1 gene. We'll get a little bit more detail on that in another slide, but it is a single gene disorder with high rate of mutations occurring in early childhood to adulthood, affecting about 1 in 3,500 individuals worldwide. So about half of these cases studied, the mutated gene is usually inherited by a parent, where the secondary half, they are the results from a new mutation, meaning that there is no affected parent. So if you are an affected individual, you will have about a 50% chance to pass it on to any offspring as well. So some clinical signs for neurofibromatosis type 1 will usually include beginning in early childhood. Many will develop multiple macules, so little lesions, patches that are café au lait color, which just means kind of like a dark brown coffee latte color, dark flat lesions, patches on the skin, increasing in size and number as the individual gets older. So some will even see freckles under their arms as well as groin areas. Neurofibromas, which are tumors of our peripheral nerves, will begin to develop on or under the skin. They will occur in nerves of the body or near the spinal cord. These can either be benign or can become and manifest into cancerous tumors, which are called malignant peripheral sheath nerve or nerve sheath tumors. Lish nodules will often appear in the iris of the eye and are usually benign but can become cancerous as they'll develop and grow along the optic nerve. That's why they're called optic gliomas, and they'll cause reduced vision as well as total blindness. Some skeletal abnormalities that you'll see can range anything from scoliosis as well as to structures of the body, so short stature, large head. You'll also see hypertension, so high blood pressure is a big one, and learning disabilities and ADHD occur in many cases. And here you'll see some pictures of the neurofibromas, the optic nerve getting kind of overwhelmed by this optic glioma here, and as well as, bone defects and so forth. So here I've added a few charts to kind of let you see that there's also segmental neurofibrosis type 1 or fibromatosis type 1. So as you'll see that it can develop on portions of the body and not the full body as a whole. Also, here are some clinical criteria that doctors will use to kind of determine whether you have neurofibromatosis, as well as what age those will begin to occur in, such as from birth, we'll be able to see that neurofibromas are pretty apparent, as well as the macules that we talked about. Around age 3 to 5, you'll begin to see like learning disabilities, dermal neurofibromas, and as well as additional other criteria. So etiology and pathogenesis. So the NF1 gene is normally responsible for producing a protein called neurofibromin, and it helps regulate the growth of nerve tissue and is located inside of chromosome 17, as I have kind of pictured down here. Neurofibromin is produced in many types of cells, ranging from the nerve cells to specialized cells called Schwann cells, as well as oligodendrocytes that typically surround the nerves. So neurofibromin essentially switches off the growth of tissues when they've reached a particular size. Neurofibromin will also typically act as a tumor suppressant in our bodies, preventing the cells from growing and dividing too rapidly in an uncontrolled manner. by turning off the protein called ROS that stimulates growth and division. As a result, the NF1 gene mutation usually results in the production of a shortened neurofibromin that can begin to cause ROS activation, allowing for neurofibromas, the non-cancerous tumors, to form. More than about 1,000 NF1 gene mutations exist and have been identified to cause neurofibromatosis type 1 and have been found in most of the 60 exons. So there's a wide range variety of mutation types, anywhere from gene deletion, gene insertion, chromosome rearrangements, disrupting the gene, etc. And although most mutations result in absence or non-functional proteins. So here we're at management of neurofibromatosis type 1, and there's currently no known cure for neurofibromatosis, but there are many forms of treatment, especially for the cosmetic portion of it. As you've seen, various and multiple amounts of tumors will develop, so you can get surgeries to remove those, as well as there are clinical trials underway to kind of treat those without those surgeries. There are various RAS inhibitors that are being developed due to the importance in common types of cancer, as well as most advancement gearing kind of towards the diagnosis of it through molecular testing. Just as opposed to the clinical criteria that we saw before, that diagram that I showed you guys, which misses about 30% of mutations. And then we have fluorodeoxyglucose positron emission topography, which can distinguish anywhere from malignant to benign tumors. This can be very helpful, especially with individuals who have over 1,000 tumors growing on their bodies. Mutations are wide in diversity, which makes it very hard for them to respond to the same treatment, which is why we're looking at more ways to treat things in a preventative manner, as opposed to when symptoms have already shown up. But here we have an example of response to one specific drug, selamentinib, and it essentially was able to cure this woman's scoliosis within time. And help her move on to a better life. So one famous case that I was able to find, which I thought was very interesting, was the case of the original Elephant Man, Joseph Carey Merrick, born August 5th, 1862. He started to develop a large mass on his lower lip, extending to his right cheek. His skull developed large frontal protuberance, with both right foot and limb enlarged. Skull was about 90 centimeters. As he got older, his deformations kind of worsened in size. Soon he wasn't even able to find work. So he was taken to the hospital and cared for by a Dr. Frederick, leading to the most famous cases of neurofibromatosis, which then was not really fully understood, which then led to the name Elephant Man. So unfortunately, he died, and it was due to the cervical dislocation caused by the weight of his head. And here, last but not least, we have my phylogenetic tree, which looks a little odd compared to Miss Day's. But here we see a lot of similarities between the aardvark and the kangaroo rats, as well as the horseshoe bat and the killer whale. Who would have known? In accordance to the NF1 gene. They are also in relation to the Pacific walrus. And down here, we are in line with primates. So we are more in line with the chimpanzee than the Merake and the bonobo primates. So that's all I have for today. Thank you guys for joining me on neurofibromatosis type 1.